Yeah, you can show me anything you want. There's no way you can convince me he wasn't an asshole.
People still don't know the real reason. Maybe it's time I told them.
You heard that right. Michael Jordan isn't just looking back. He's calling out the truth behind one of the most bitter rivalries the NBA has ever seen. Today, we're diving deep into why MJ never liked Isiah Thomas. From the brutal playoff wars that left Jordan laid out on the hardwood to that infamous walk-off that killed their relationship for good, and the dream team snub that Isiah still can't live down. And if you think this was just about a few hard fouls, think again. Jordan made sure Thomas paid a price that went way beyond the court. If you really want to understand why Jordan's beef with Thomas ran so deep, you can't start with a handshake or Olympic drama. Nope, it starts with pain. You gotta rewind to the late 80s playoffs, when basketball wasn't just physical, it was personal. Jordan was flying down the lane, ready to pull off one of those hang-in-the-air moves that made crowds lose their minds, and then boom. Bill Laimbeer slammed his shoulder right into Jordan's chest like a linebacker. MJ hit the floor hard. The crowd went silent. But the Pistons bench, they were loving it. But here's the thing. This wasn't just some random cheap shot. Detroit had a plan. They literally had something called the Jordan rules. And it was exactly what it sounds like.
As soon as he steps in the paint, hit him.
Every time Jordan stepped into the paint, hit him. And if he got up, hit him again. And if he still got up, hit him harder. Years later, former Pistons assistant coach Brendan Malone admitted it straight up.
Well, that's the Jordan rules, and it was that simple.
What happens when he doesn't make the baseline?
That's when Laimbeer and Mahorn would go up and knock him down to the ground.
They weren't just trying to defend Jordan. They were trying to break him. Mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever it took. And right in the middle of that chaos stood Isiah Thomas. He wasn't some innocent bystander watching his teammates throw elbows. He was the general of the bad boys, the hometown hero from Chicago who turned Detroit into a dynasty built on grit and pain. To Isiah, those hits weren't dirty. They were just smart basketball. Don't believe it? Even Thomas himself once said, "Oh yeah, take out his right hand."
And you as a defender, your job is to take away his right hand.
That's how deep the strategy went. Now imagine the contrast. Jordan was the new face of the NBA. The league's next golden child after Magic and Bird. His game was pure flair and domination, and he wanted to humiliate you before posterizing your center. Every dunk, every crossover, it was a statement. So you can only imagine how it felt when every trip to the rim turned into a full-on wrestling match. While the NBA was hyping Jordan as the future, the Pistons were treating him like a crash test dummy. And who was standing right there in the middle of it all? Isiah Thomas, the smiling leader who watched his crew drop elbows and body slams like it was war. That's when the resentment started to simmer and the rivalry turned personal. Because this wasn't just about basketball, it was about power, pride, and who owned the spotlight. Jordan saw himself as the chosen heir to the NBA throne, the man destined to take basketball global. But Thomas, he saw himself as the underdog who had already earned his crown in Detroit, only to have the league's attention stolen by this flashy new superstar from North Carolina. And that's where the hate started to build. Hit after hit, playoff after playoff. Jordan never forgot those bruises, and Thomas never backed down. This wasn't just a rivalry. It was war dressed as basketball. Year after year, those playoff clashes stopped being basketball. They turned into straight-up war. Every series between Chicago and Detroit felt like a battlefield. And this fight became the wall Michael Jordan had to crash through to reach greatness.
How would you describe the way you felt then and feel now about having been the bad boys?
The Pistons had already earned their bad boys title by the late 80s. They didn't just talk tough, they were tough. Every elbow, every shove, every hit sent a message. Step into the lane and you'll regret it. And no one took more damage than Michael Jordan himself. Back in 1988, when Chicago faced Detroit in the Eastern Conference semifinals, MJ was putting up insane numbers, averaging 36 points, nearly 7 rebounds, and close to 5 assists a game. But Detroit didn't care about stats. They cared about breaking you down. Their defense was like a pack of wolves. Surround him, hit him, wear him out till he can't move, and they meant every word of it. Even Dennis Rodman later admitted that the plan wasn't to stop Jordan. It was to hurt him enough to make him hesitate.
Every time you go to the fucking basket, put him on the ground. When he comes to the basket, he ain't gonna dunk. We're gonna hit you, and you're gonna be on the ground.
And Jordan was still down.
We tried to physically hurt Michael.
By 1989, this wasn't basketball anymore. It was personal. The Bulls weren't just a one-man show now. Scottie Pippen was leveling up, Horace Grant was adding strength inside, and Chicago finally looked like they could snatch the East from Detroit's grip. The Eastern Conference Finals stretched to 7 brutal games, and in the middle of that chaos, Jordan unleashed pure fire. Game 3 was the stuff of legend. MJ went off for 46 points, breaking through double teams, gliding to the rim, and drilling jumpers that made the crowd explode. The Bulls stole that one, 99-97, and for a second, it felt like the balance of power was shifting. But the Pistons weren't ready to give up their throne. They still had one more weapon, the Jordan rules, and they were about to enforce them like never before. That '89 series turned into a full-blown street fight. Every time Jordan took off, Laimbeer was waiting with a forearm, and Rodman was there to drag him out of the air. Every possession felt like punishment. And when it came down to Game 7, fate kicked the Bulls right where it hurt. Scottie Pippen caught a brutal migraine, barely able to see straight, and shot just 1 for 10. Meanwhile, Jordan was fighting through double teams, bruises, and exhaustion, but it didn't matter. Detroit crushed them, 93-74. The Pistons moved on, and Jordan walked off the court defeated, furious and humiliated. And if you think the Pistons showed mercy, not a chance. Isiah Thomas and his crew laughed it off, calling it toughness. To them, Chicago wasn't unlucky, they were soft. And Jordan, he never forgot that. Then came 1990. Same rivalry, same conference finals, another chance at revenge. By now, MJ wasn't even pretending to hide his disgust. He was done with the handshakes, done with the fake smiles. This time, he came for blood. Jordan averaged 32 points per game that series, attacking from every angle. But the Pistons still had that system, that code. It was one man against the machine, and every hit took a toll, game after game. Detroit's defense chipped away at him like a heavyweight pounding body shots. When it came down to another Game 7, the story didn't change. Detroit won again and punched their ticket to the finals, while Chicago was left to stew in frustration. By that point, the entire Eastern Conference was Detroit's empire. The Celtics were fading, the Lakers were aging, and the Pistons were the kings of the grind. They ruled through pain, intimidation, and grit. And everyone, including Michael Jordan, understood what it took to face them. You didn't just play the Pistons, you survived them. So when 1991 rolled around, this wasn't just another playoff rematch. It was the reckoning. The fourth act in a grudge match soaked in revenge, humiliation, and unfinished business. But this time, the Bulls came with a new attitude, stronger, sharper, and absolutely done being bullied. And what happened next? Oh, it flipped everything upside down. Chicago didn't just beat Detroit, they embarrassed them. By '91, the Bulls weren't knocking on the door anymore. They kicked it clean off the hinges. Chicago swept the Pistons, 4 games straight. No excuses, no migraines, and definitely no more Jordan rules. The torch had been passed, and everyone knew it. This time, it was the Bulls who played physical, relentless, and fearless. Detroit looked old, tired, and flat out drained. Jordan was in full command, averaging nearly 30 a night, and the difference wasn't just in the numbers, it was in the control. Every time the Pistons tried to rough him up, Jordan bounced back like it didn't even faze him. He had finally figured them out, and he made sure they knew it. Every time the Pistons collapsed on Jordan, he responded. He'd find Scottie Pippen or Horace Grant cutting to the basket, and with each assist, the Pistons' grip weakened. By Game 4, it wasn't just a loss, it was a breakdown. Detroit wasn't just losing, they were shattered. And then came the moment. With just seconds left on the clock, Isiah Thomas stood up from the bench, nodded to his teammates, and led them off the court. No handshakes, no congratulations, no eye contact, just a cold, silent exit to the locker room.
Well, I think the crowd is cheering here for the Bulls right now, and the Pistons as they leave the court. I don't think they're cheering for the Bulls, but I think the greeting is for the Pistons as they are headed off.
Bill Laimbeer followed. Dennis Rodman, too. The entire Pistons squad ghosted the Bulls after their biggest win yet. If you thought beating Detroit was the peak for Chicago, you're wrong. This was the moment that everything boiled over. To Jordan, this wasn't just bad sportsmanship. It was betrayal. And if you know Michael Jordan, you know that betrayal was like pouring gasoline on an already raging fire. Rivalries in basketball are ugly. That's a given. But this was something else. Walking off the court without shaking hands wasn't just disrespectful in basketball. It was disrespectful in any sport. It was a blatant snub. And the entire arena felt it. The cameras caught Jordan's reaction immediately. At first, he was stunned. Then, his anger started to build. The Pistons had spent years tearing him down. Physically, mentally, emotionally. And now that he finally conquered them, They couldn't even give him the basic respect of a handshake. Even years later, in The Last Dance, Jordan wasn't over it. When the footage of the walk-off aired, you could still see the bitterness in his eyes. He called Thomas an asshole.
Yeah, you can show me anything you want. There's no way you can convince me he wasn't an asshole.
Not in the heat of 1991, but in 2020, nearly 3 decades later. That's how deep the scar ran. And Isiah Thomas tried to spin it afterward, claiming that the Celtics had walked off the court on the Pistons years before, so it wasn't a big deal.
It was okay when Larry Bird exited. We never looked back and said, oh, they were poor sports, they were bad champions. We were actually grateful of the lessons that they had taught us along the way in terms of how to win.
But let's be real, this wasn't some tradition or playful rivalry. This was pure bitterness. That one gesture froze their relationship forever. Jordan went on to win championships, earn global fame, and claim the throne of basketball. But for Thomas, the respect was gone. No matter how many times their paths crossed later, that walk-off lingered, sitting between them like a fresh wound that would never heal. If you thought that handshake snub was petty, just wait till you hear about the Dream Team. In 1992, the United States assembled what's still considered the greatest basketball team ever, the Dream Team. This squad didn't just win gold in Barcelona. They transformed basketball into a global phenomenon. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, John Stockton, and Patrick Ewing. This was basketball's version of the Avengers. They didn't just dominate the Olympics. They made the NBA a worldwide sensation. Every kid outside the US who fell in love with basketball in the 90s probably started with that team. Now here's where it gets messy. On paper, there was one name that should have been a lock for the Dream Team: Isiah Thomas. This wasn't some random pick. Thomas had 2 NBA championships, multiple All-Star selections, and a Finals MVP. He was the leader of the only team that had ever knocked Jordan off his throne in his prime. By every measure, he deserved to be there. But when the final roster was released, Thomas's name was nowhere to be found. To put this in perspective, John Stockton made it, Clyde Drexler made it, even Christian Leitner, still in college, made the team. But Thomas, he was left at home, watching from the couch.
They called me to ask me to play. Rob phone called and said, Rob, I won't play with Isiah Thomas on the team. He assured me, he said, you know what? Chuck that one, Isiah. So Isiah's not going to be a part of the team.
And for years, the rumor mill churned, with everyone whispering that Jordan had something to do with it. The story goes that when the U.S. selection committee was putting the team together, Jordan made it clear, if Thomas is in, I'm out. That was the price. And no one was going to risk the Dream Team without Michael Jordan. Not when he was the reigning MVP, the finals hero, and the face of basketball worldwide. The politics were obvious. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird both had issues with Thomas, but despite that, they still made the team. Jordan's rising influence, combined with the cold shoulders from other stars, made it easy for the committee to leave Thomas off. Think about what that meant. The Dream Team wasn't just a collection of the best players, it was the most iconic moment in basketball history, and Isiah Thomas wasn't a part of it. This wasn't just a snub, it was personal. Jordan may have forgiven many things, but when it came to Isiah Thomas, the respect was long gone. Every player who rocked that Team USA jersey in 1992 got to live forever as part of basketball royalty, the Dream Team. Every player except Isiah Thomas. For him, it wasn't just missing a tournament. It was being erased from the biggest chapter in sports history. That one omission haunted him for the rest of his career. Every time a Dream Team documentary drops or an Olympic highlight reel plays, Thomas's name is missing. Gone, like he never existed. No matter how many banners he hung in Detroit, that snub left a permanent hole in his legacy. And decades later, fans still debate the same question. Not whether he was good enough, because he absolutely was, but whether he was just too hated to belong beside the legends, too toxic, too cold, too cutthroat for the brotherhood of NBA elites. That's the sting for Thomas. It wasn't that he lacked greatness, it's that his peers turned their backs on him for Jordan. And that's when the revenge flipped sides. The Pistons had mocked Jordan, slammed him, and walked off without shaking his hand. Now MJ held the power, and he used it in the most ruthless way possible. Thomas was out, and Jordan was in control. You'd think time might cool the tension, but decades later, Jordan reignited the flames. For years, the Bulls-Pistons rivalry lived mostly in old highlight reels and radio talk. Younger fans barely cared, but then came 2020. Lockdown hit, everyone was home, and ESPN dropped The Last Dance. Suddenly, that decades-old feud was front page again, and the world couldn't get enough. Jordan didn't sugarcoat anything. Sitting there with a glass of whiskey and that iconic smirk, he let it all out. No, it was mutual respect. No, we were just competitors. Nah, MJ spoke straight from the scar tissue. Even with 6 rings and a global empire, you could still feel how much those Pistons battles haunted him. The documentary hit hard. It spotlighted every elbow, every cheap shot, and of course, the infamous walk-off. And since it was told through Jordan's lens, the whole story leaned his way. To millions of new fans watching for the first time, Detroit came off like cartoon villains, mean, dirty, and jealous of his airness. And when the smoke cleared, Thomas was painted as the face of the bad guys. But Isiah wasn't staying quiet. He jumped on every mic and camera that would have him. Interviews, sports shows, podcasts, you name it. He fired back, saying the Pistons weren't thugs, they were tough. They played the game the way it was back then, hard, physical, and unforgiving. Thomas said, "We played real basketball, no handouts." To him, the idea that he was some evil mastermind running dirty tricks wasn't just unfair, it was lazy storytelling. But in 2020, the world had changed. The media wasn't controlled by sports writers anymore. It belonged to social media. And the verdict came quick. On Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. The younger generation weighed in instantly. To fans who never saw the 80s Pistons live, The Last Dance became gospel truth. Jordan was the hero, Detroit were the goons, and Isiah, just the bitter old guy stuck in the past. Still, Thomas refused to fold. Every time someone threw shade, he came right back with facts. He reminded people how the Pistons took down Bird, Magic, and Jordan, 3 of the biggest names ever in their primes. He said, "Look at my resume, it speaks for itself." And while most fans weren't exactly running to defend him, you've got to respect the man's courage. It takes real guts to keep standing your ground after the world's most beloved athlete just blasted you on Netflix in front of millions. So what The Last Dance really did was turn the old feud into a brand new drama. It brought the beef back to life, dropped it in front of a whole new audience, and reignited every grudge all over again. Jordan still hated Thomas. Thomas still felt disrespected. And the fans, they ate it up. It became the biggest sports soap opera of 2020, 2 legends still fighting over ghosts from 30 years ago. But here's the thing. Through it all, Isiah Thomas never fully disrespected Jordan's greatness. Every time he spoke, he made it clear MJ was one of the best to ever touch a basketball, no question. What Thomas didn't respect was the way the story kept being told, with him as the villain and Jordan as the saint. And that's the tragedy and the beauty of it, because even decades later, the fire never burned out. 2 icons, 2 sides, 1 story, and the world still can't get enough of it. For Isiah Thomas, the deepest cut wasn't the walk-off, the hard fouls, or even the years of bad blood. It was the dream team snub.
Had we had the opportunity to do it all over again, I think all of us would make a different decision. Now, me, myself personally, I've paid a heavy price for that decision.
That one decision haunted him for decades. But here's the twist. His pain wasn't just about missing a roster spot. It revealed something way bigger about how the NBA really works. Behind the highlights and trophies, there's a game of politics, power, and influence. And in that game, talent alone doesn't always win. And nobody understood that better than Michael Jordan, because when you talk about MJ, you're not just talking about points, rings, or shoe deals. You're talking about control. By the early 90s, Jordan wasn't just the biggest name in basketball. He was basketball. He wasn't just the face of the NBA. He defined it. If Jordan wanted something, odds were it happened. So when you look back at Thomas being left off the dream team, it's hard not to see Jordan's shadow behind the scenes. The NBA wasn't just picking players. They were building a narrative. They didn't want a reminder of the bruising bad boy Pistons who once bullied the league. Nah, in 1992, they wanted to usher in the Jordan era. Clean, global, marketable, and Isiah didn't fit that picture. That's the truth nobody wanted to say out loud. Basketball isn't just about who scores more. It's about who the league wants to shine. And in that moment, Jordan's glow was too bright for anyone else to stand next to. And honestly, that blueprint never left. Fast forward to today's NBA, and you'll see the same playbook, just updated. Look at LeBron James. The man doesn't just play the game, he runs it. From who gets traded, to who gets signed, to how locker room chemistry is built, LeBron moves pieces like he's playing chess. Superstars with real power control their own storylines, and whether people like it or not, that all started with Jordan. He showed every future star exactly how much pull one man could have off the court. So yeah, Isiah Thomas getting left off the dream team wasn't just personal beef. It was proof that in the NBA, power and perception often matter more than performance. It wasn't about who deserved it. It was about who fit the image. And Jordan versus Thomas, that wasn't just another feud. It was the defining rivalry that changed how basketball politics worked forever. But that's just one chapter, because the NBA has always been fueled by beef. And some of those rivalries didn't just shape seasons. They defined entire eras. Take Kobe and Shaq, for example. Their drama in the early 2000s wasn't just basketball, it was Hollywood. Two megastars in Los Angeles, fighting for touches, spotlight, and respect. They still dominated together, winning 3 straight titles. But behind the scenes, that tension was boiling hot. Eventually, it exploded. Shaq got traded, Kobe rebuilt the franchise, and years later, they finally laughed about it on camera. That's beef that turned into brotherhood. Then there's Jordan and Charles Barkley. They used to be tight, golf buddies, cracking jokes off the court, living large. But years later, when Barkley criticized Jordan's front office decisions as an executive, that friendship ended instantly. Jordan cut him off cold. No texts, no calls, no reconciliation, just distance. And to this day, Barkley's admitted publicly that he wishes they could fix it. That's beef with a small chance of healing, but not much hope left. And of course, LeBron's had his share of tension too. But his wasn't with another player, it was with ownership. When he left Cleveland in 2010, Cavs owner Dan Gilbert went nuclear, dropping that infamous open letter where he called LeBron a coward and promised the team would win a title before LeBron ever did. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Every era of basketball has its beefs, but Jordan and Thomas, that one stands alone. Because it wasn't just about wins or losses, it was about power, legacy, and who got to write history. But here's the wild twist. LeBron still went back to Cleveland in 2014. After all that drama, he returned home, carried the weight of an entire city, and delivered their first championship in 50 years. That comeback didn't just silence the critics. It turned one of the pettiest fallouts in NBA history into a redemption story for the ages. And that's the pattern with most NBA feuds. Time, money, and winning have a way of healing wounds. Eventually, stars laugh about it, take photos together, and keep it moving. But Jordan and Thomas? Nah, that one's different. It wasn't just about basketball. This was bigger than rings or records. It was about pride, legacy, and the kind of politics that never truly fade. Even decades later, every time one of them speaks, the feud comes roaring back. Every interview, every documentary, every headline, it's like hitting replay on one of the most personal rivalries the game has ever seen. Because when it comes to Jordan and Thomas, that bitterness never cooled off. It never got resolved, never softened into one of those funny, we were young stories like Shaq and Kobe hugging it out, or LeBron making peace with Cleveland. Nope, this one stayed raw. Jordan held that grudge like it was a championship trophy. Tight, personal, and permanent. And every time someone asks him about Isiah, you can still see it in his eyes. He hasn't let it go, not even close. So now the question is, whose side are you on? Are you riding with Team MJ, the king who conquered the world and rewrote the game? Or Team Thomas, the fearless underdog who refused to bow down? Let's hear it in the comments. Smash that like button, share this with your crew, and make sure to hit subscribe, because the next NBA feud we break down might just blow your mind even more.